The crystalline walls of Captain Elena Vasquez's prison cell would have been beautiful under different circumstances. Instead, they served as a constant reminder that she was approximately 47 light-years from home, trapped aboard a Zephyrian flagship with absolutely no idea whether her diplomatic mission had started an interstellar war or just ruined her career prospects. "The human awakens," observed a voice that sounded like wind chimes mixed with distant thunder. Elena sat up on what she generously assumed was meant to be a bed, though it felt more like sleeping on a collection of perfectly arranged gemstones. Standing in the doorway was the reason for her current predicament. Queen Lyxara of the Zephyrian Confederation, 7 feet of elegant alien authority whose presence made the spacious cell feel suddenly cramped. "Your Majesty," Elena said with as much diplomatic dignity as someone wearing torn clothing could muster. "I don't suppose we could discuss this misunderstanding over coffee. I make terrible decisions before my second cup, which might explain how I ended up here." Queen Lyxara tilted her head, causing the crystalline formations that crowned her skull to catch the ambient light in fascinating patterns. Her silver skin seemed to shimmer with its own internal luminescence, and her elongated limbs moved with a fluid grace that was simultaneously alien and mesmerizing. "Coffee," the Queen repeated, as if testing the word. "Your species' stimulant beverage. We have analyzed its chemical composition. The addiction potential seems inefficient. Says the species that apparently thinks kidnapping diplomats is good foreign policy," Elena replied, then immediately wondered if sarcasm was considered an act of war among Zephyrians. "Sorry, that was rude. Captivity makes me cranky." Cranky, another word like Sarah seemed to be cataloging. This refers to emotional instability caused by adverse circumstances. Elena studied the Queen's face, noting how her features were almost human except for the subtle elongation of her skull, and the way her eyes seemed to hold depths that went on forever. "Are you actually curious, or is this some kind of psychological torture technique? Because I should warn you, I already know I'm emotionally unstable. My therapist back on Earth has been very clear about that." Something that might have been amusement flickered across Lyxara's expression. "Your species' relationship with emotional dysfunction is fascinating. You acknowledge it, even joke about it, yet continue functioning despite these acknowledged flaws. Welcome to humanity. We're basically held together by caffeine, stubbornness, and the persistent delusion that tomorrow will be better." Elena swung her legs over the edge of the crystalline bed, testing whether standing was allowed or would result in additional restraints. "So what's the plan here? Ransom? Information extraction? Or are you just collecting humans for your intergalactic zoo?" Queen Lyxara stepped fully into the cell, her movements creating subtle harmonic resonances in the crystalline walls. "You were not captured for political purposes, Captain Vasquez. Your presence here serves a different function." "Oh good, mystery kidnapping, my favorite kind." Elena stood slowly, noting how the Queen's height advantage was even more pronounced now. "Let me guess, you need a human to reach something on a low shelf. I require information about human attraction patterns and mating behaviors," Lyxara stated with the clinical precision of someone discussing weather patterns. Elena blinked. "I'm sorry, did you just say you kidnapped me to discuss dating advice?" "Your species exhibits emotional and physical attraction, responses that defy logical analysis. Zephyrian reproductive practices are governed by genetic compatibility algorithms and resource optimization calculations. Human behavior suggests additional variables we have failed to identify." "Right, so you're basically asking me to explain why humans fall in love instead of just running compatibility software." Elena couldn't decide whether to laugh or be offended. "Have you considered that maybe love isn't supposed to be logical?" Lyxara's crystalline crown shifted colors slightly, cycling through shades of deep blue and violet. "Illogical systems are inherently flawed. Yet human emotional attachment appears to strengthen rather than weaken your species' survival capabilities. This contradiction requires investigation. Investigation. Alina repeated the word with growing disbelief. You started an interstellar incident because you want to understand human romance. The diplomatic incident was unintended, like Sarah admitted with what might have been embarrassment. Your vessel's presence in our territory coincided with my research requirements. The opportunity seemed efficient. Alina stared at the alien queen, processing the implications. So you saw a human diplomat thought perfect test subject and decided to just grab me. Do you have any idea how insane that sounds? Sanity is a relative concept when dealing with interspecies psychological phenomena. Like Sarah replied with absolute seriousness. Your reaction patterns alone have provided significant data about human emotional responses to captivity, authority figures, and unexpected social dynamics. Glad I could be so educational, Alina said dryly. But if you want to understand human attraction, kidnapping probably isn't the best research methodology. We tend to find it off-putting. Like Sarah moved closer, her height casting Alina in shadow. Yet you do not exhibit the fear responses we predicted. Your verbal patterns suggest humor, irritation, and curiosity rather than terror. This inconsistency requires further analysis. Alina found herself looking up into those impossibly deep eyes, noting how the queen's presence filled the space between them with something that felt almost electric. Maybe I'm just too tired to be properly terrified. Or maybe I'm curious about what kind of being thinks scientific method applies to dating. Dating, like Sarah repeated, and this time Alina caught a slight change in her tone. The human practice of evaluating potential, mates through social interaction and shared activities. Among other things, yes. Alina was beginning to understand that she was dealing with someone whose intellectual curiosity might be even more dangerous than political ambition, though it usually involves less imprisonment and more mutual consent. Consent, like Sarah said, stepping back slightly. Voluntary participation in social bonding activities. Exactly, revolutionary concept, I know. Alina watched the queen's expression, trying to read emotions in features that were almost familiar but not quite human. Why is this so important to you? Don't Zephyrians have relationships? Like Sarah's crystalline crown shifted to deeper shades of purple. We have reproductive partnerships determined by genetic analysis and social utility calculations. What you call relationships, this is not something we experience. Alina felt something shift in her understanding of the situation. You don't fall in love. We do not comprehend the mechanism by which humans form irrational emotional attachments that supersede logical decision-making, like Sarah confirmed. Yet these attachments appear to provide significant psychological and social benefits. The contradiction is troubling. Troubling enough to kidnap someone. Troubling enough to risk diplomatic complications, yes. Like Sarah's admission carried weight that suggested this wasn't a casual research project. Your species' emotional complexity represents a significant gap in our understanding of sentient behavior. Alina studied the queen's face, noting subtle signs of something that looked almost like vulnerability. And you thought I could explain it to you. I thought proximity to a human subject would provide observational data about these mysterious emotional responses. Like Sarah's tone became more clinical, as if retreating into scientific objectivity. I did not anticipate that the observation process itself would generate complications. What kind of complications? Like Sarah's crystalline crown flared brighter, cycling through colors Alina hadn't seen before. The kind that suggest human emotional irrationality might be contagious. Alina's daily routine aboard the Zephyrian flagship had settled into what could generously be called structured chaos. Queen like Sarah insisted on personally overseeing what she termed Alina's cultural integration process, which apparently involved subjecting her to increasingly bizarre attempts at human hospitality. I have prepared what your species calls a comfort meal, like Sarah announced, entering Alina's quarters with a tray that hummed with suspicious energy. Research indicates humans derive emotional satisfaction from familiar nutritional experiences. Alina examined the offering, which appeared to be some kind of metallic soup garnished with what looked like tiny lightning bolts. That's very thoughtful. What exactly am I looking at here? Processed nutrient solution, enhanced with electrical stimulation, to replicate the neural satisfaction humans derive from consumed matter. Like Sarah explained with obvious pride in her scientific methodology. The electromagnetic discharge should trigger pleasure responses similar to what you call comfort food. Right. Alina poked at the soup with the provided utensil, which seemed to be made of crystallized starlight. And you based this recipe on what research exactly? Analysis of human nutritional databases, cross-referenced with psychological studies on food-related emotional responses. Like Sarah settled into the chair across from Alina with fluid grace, watching her intently. I calculated optimal flavor profiles based on compounds most frequently associated with human comfort. Alina took a cautious sip and immediately understood why Zephyrians relied on logic rather than taste in their food preparation. The soup tasted like someone had dissolved a battery in mineral water and added a hint of ozone for complexity. It's unique, she managed, fighting to keep her expression neutral. Very electrical. Like Sarah's crystalline crown brightened with satisfaction. You find it pleasant. The electromagnetic resonance was calibrated specifically for human neural chemistry. I can definitely feel the electromagnetic resonance, Alina replied truthfully, since her tongue was currently experiencing what felt like a mild electrocution. It's certainly an experience. Excellent, this confirms my hypothesis about human sensory adaptation capabilities. Like Sarah leaned forward eagerly. Now, while you consume the comfort meal, perhaps you could explain the human concept of small talk. Alina nearly choked on her electrified soup. Small talk. You want me to teach you casual conversation. My research indicates that human bonding often begins with superficial verbal exchanges about trivial matters. This seems highly inefficient, yet appears crucial to relationship formation. Like Sarah's tone suggested she found this as baffling as quantum mechanics. I require practical instruction in this methodology. Okay, but fair warning. Small talk is kind of the opposite of Zephyrian efficiency. Alina set down her spoon, grateful for the excuse to stop eating. It's basically talking without saying anything important, just to make social connections. Illogical communication serving social rather than informational functions, like Sarah mused. Demonstrate, please. Alina couldn't help but smile at the Queen's earnest scientific approach to casual conversation. All right, here's how it works. I might say something like, "Nice weather we're having," and you're supposed to agree and maybe comment about how you prefer sunny days or whatever. But we are currently traveling through the vacuum of space. There is no weather, like Sarah pointed out with logical precision. That's not the point. The weather comment isn't really about weather. It's just a way to start talking without having to dive into anything heavy or personal. Alina found herself genuinely enjoying the Queen's confusion. It's like social warm-up exercises. Like Sarah's eyes narrowed in concentration. I see. The content is irrelevant. The function is establishing communicative rapport. Very well. She straightened in her chair with obvious determination. The artificial gravity aboard this vessel is functioning within optimal parameters. Alina burst out laughing, which caused like Sarah's crown to cycle through several colors in rapid succession. That was actually pretty good. Very technical, but you've got the basic idea. Your laughter indicates success. Like Sarah's expression, Alina was reviewing what like Sarah optimistically called recreational literature. When the Queen burst into her quarters with the kind of agitated energy that made the crystalline walls hum in sympathetic resonance. Her usual composed demeanor had cracked, revealing something raw and desperate underneath. I require immediate clarification on human attraction parameters, like Sarah announced without preamble, her crown cycling through colors Alina had never seen before, deep reds mixed with volatile oranges that seemed to pulse with barely contained emotion. "Good evening to you too," Alina said, setting aside the Zephyrian poetry she'd been attempting to decipher. "What's got you so worked up?" "I have been analyzing the data from our interactions." Like Sarah began pacing the small space like a caged predator, her elongated limbs creating fluid patterns of movement. "The results are inconsistent with my hypotheses about human emotional responses." Alina watched the Queen's agitation with growing concern. "What kind of inconsistencies?" "You should exhibit stress responses to prolonged captivity. Instead, you demonstrate increased comfort and what appears to be enjoyment of our conversations." Like Sarah stopped pacing to fix Alina with an intense stare. "Your bioreadings indicate elevated heart rate and altered brain chemistry during our physical contact experiments, but not in patterns consistent with fear or distress." "Maybe because I'm not afraid or distressed," Alina suggested carefully, recognizing that they were approaching dangerous territory. "Maybe I actually enjoy spending time with you." "Impossible." Like Sarah's crown flared bright enough to cast shadows. "I am your captor. You are my prisoner. Human psychological profiles clearly indicate that such circumstances should produce antagonistic rather than affiliative responses." Alina stood slowly, noting how like Sarah's agitation seemed to increase as she moved closer. "Like Sarah, when was the last time someone enjoyed your company just because they liked you?" The question seemed to hit the Queen like a physical blow. Her crown dimmed to almost nothing, and her shoulders sagged with the weight of some revelation Alina couldn't quite grasp. "Zephyrian social interactions are governed by hierarchy, utility, and reproductive calculations," like Sarah said quietly. "Enjoyment of companionship for its own sake is not. We do not experience this." "That sounds lonely," Alina said softly, taking another step closer. "Loneliness is an inefficient emotional state that serves no productive purpose," like Sarah replied, but her voice lacked conviction. "We eliminated such feelings through generations of genetic optimization." "Did you, or did you just convince yourselves you had?" Alina was close enough now to see the subtle shifts of light beneath like Sarah's silver skin. "Because from where I'm standing, you seem pretty lonely to me." Like Sarah's head snapped up, her eyes blazing with something that might have been fury or desperation. "You cannot possibly understand Zephyrian psychological states. Your species lacks the intellectual framework to comprehend our emotional architecture." "Maybe not," Alina agreed. "But I understand what it looks like when someone is desperate to connect with another being and doesn't know how." The words seemed to break something fundamental in like Sarah's composure. She moved faster than Alina had ever seen her move, backing her against the crystalline wall with the fluid grace of a predator cornering its prey. But there was nothing predatory in her eyes, only a kind of raw vulnerability that made Alina's breath catch. "You think you understand me?" Like Sarah's voice was barely above a whisper, her face inches from Alina's. "You think your human emotional frameworks apply to someone like me?" Alina's heart hammered against her ribs, but not from fear. The Queen's presence filled her senses, the warm metallic scent of her skin, the way her crown cast prismatic light across both their faces, the electric tension that seemed to crackle in the space between them. "I think you're scared," Alina said quietly. "I think you've spent your whole life being perfect and efficient and logical, and now you're feeling things that don't fit your equations and it terrifies you." Like Sarah's hand struck the wall beside Alina's head hard enough to send harmonic vibrations through the crystalline structure. "You know nothing about what terrifies me." "Then tell me," Alina challenged, meeting those impossible eyes without flinching. "Stop hiding behind all this scientific methodology and tell me what's really going on here." For a long moment, they stood frozen in place, like Sarah's breath coming in short gasps that seemed to synchronize with Alina's racing pulse. The queen's crown had dimmed to a soft, pulsing glow that cast intimate shadows across her angular features. "I do not understand what you have done to me," like Sarah finally whispered, her voice carrying the weight of confession. "Since your arrival, my thought patterns have become increasingly erratic. I find myself anticipating our conversations, analyzing your facial expressions for signs of approval, experiencing distress when you are absent from my presence." Elena's breath caught, like Sarah. "I have consulted our most advanced psychological databases. These symptoms correspond to what human literature describes as infatuation or attraction." Like Sarah's voice grew more desperate. "But such feelings should not be possible between our species. The biological and cultural barriers should render any meaningful connection impossible." "Should doesn't mean much when it comes to how we actually feel," Elena said softly. Like Sarah's other hand came up to bracket Elena's face, her touch surprisingly gentle despite the obvious tension in her frame. "I need to understand. I need to know if these impossible feelings serve any function, or if I am simply experiencing some form of psychological breakdown." Elena looked up into those deep, alien eyes and felt something fundamental shift in her chest. "What are you asking me?" "I am asking." Like Sarah's voice faltered, and when she spoke again, it was with the careful precision of someone afraid their words might shatter something precious. "Do you think I'm beautiful, human?" The question hung in the air between them like a bridge neither of them was sure they should cross. Elena saw the vulnerability in like Sarah's expression, the desperate need for validation that transcended species barriers and scientific methodology. "I think," Elena said carefully, raising her hand to touch the crystalline formations that crowned like Sarah's head, "that you're the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Alien, impossible, and absolutely beautiful." Like Sarah's crown flared with brilliant light, and Elena felt the queen's bioelectrical field surge in response to her words. The space between them crackled with energy that had nothing to do with Zephyrian technology, and everything to do with the fundamental forces that drew two beings together across the vast distances of space and understanding. "This is highly irregular," like Sarah whispered, though she made no move to pull away. "The best things usually are," Elena replied, and realized that somewhere in the process of being kidnapped for scientific research, she had fallen completely and irreversibly in love with an alien queen who was just learning what it meant to feel. Elena's confession that she found like Sarah beautiful had triggered something in the queen that neither of them fully understood. Over the following days, like Sarah's carefully constructed scientific objectivity crumbled as she grappled with emotions her species had allegedly evolved beyond. She would appear in Elena's quarters at odd hours, sometimes pacing with nervous energy, other times simply sitting in contemplative silence, while her crown cycled through colors Elena was beginning to read like an emotional barometer. "My council is becoming suspicious," like Sarah announced one morning, settling into her usual chair with uncharacteristic rigidity. "They question why a simple research project requires such extensive personal interaction." Elena looked up from her breakfast, actual human food that like Sarah had somehow acquired, though she suspected it had involved significant diplomatic effort. "What did you tell them?" "That comprehensive behavioral analysis requires prolonged observation periods." Like Sarah's crown shifted to muted blues that Elena recognized as anxiety. "However, Council Member Zexthara has begun questioning the scientific validity of my methodology. Let me guess, Zexthara thinks you're spending too much time with your test subject." "Council Member Zexthara believes I am exhibiting symptoms of what humans would term emotional compromise." Like Sarah's voice carried the weight of someone facing an impossible choice. "He has recommended immediate termination of the research project." Elena felt her blood run cold. Termination of the project or termination of me? The distinction may be irrelevant, like Sarah admitted with devastating honesty. Zephyrian protocols for handling compromised research typically involve eliminating variables that introduce unwanted complications. Well, that's not ominous at all. Elena tried to keep her tone light despite the fear crawling up her spine. So what are our options here? Like Sarah's expression suggested, their options were limited and unpleasant. You could be returned to human space immediately, with appropriate memory modifications to prevent diplomatic complications. Memory modifications. Elena's voice climbed several octaves. You mean brainwashing? Selective neural editing to remove problematic recollections. Like Sarah clarified with clinical precision, that didn't make the concept any less terrifying. It would be painless and leave your core personality intact. Elena stared at the Queen, processing the implications. But I wouldn't remember you. You would not remember any of this, like Sarah confirmed, her crown dimming to almost nothing. You would return to your previous life with no awareness that your worldview had been fundamentally altered by contact with our species. And you, what happens to you? Like Sarah's laugh was bitter and entirely without humor. I would return to my duties as Queen, having learned valuable lessons about the dangers of emotional compromise and the importance of maintaining proper scientific objectivity. Elena stood abruptly, anger flaring in her chest. That's it, that's your solution. Erase everything we've shared and pretend none of this mattered. It is the logical solution, like Sarah replied, though her voice lacked conviction. It preserves diplomatic relations, eliminates security risks, and returns both of us to our proper functional parameters. Screw functional parameters. Elena crossed the room to face like Sarah directly. What about what we want? What about the fact that you've spent weeks learning to feel things your species never taught you were possible? What I want is irrelevant, like Sarah said, standing to meet Elena's challenge. I am responsible for the welfare of my entire species. I cannot prioritize personal desires over collective security, even if those personal desires represent something unprecedented, something that could change everything. Elena reached for like Sarah's hands, noting how the Queen's bioelectrical field responded to her touch with increasing intensity. You said yourself that human emotional complexity represented a gap in your understanding. Maybe that gap exists for a reason. Like Sarah's crown began cycling through rapid color changes, her internal struggle visible in the shifting patterns of light. You suggest that emotional connection serves evolutionary purposes we have failed to recognize. I suggest that maybe your species eliminated something important when you optimized away loneliness and love. Elena stepped close enough to feel the warmth radiating from like Sarah's metallic skin.